Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. With the Ukrainian top negotiators holding another round of talks with the US in Miami, the efforts to end Russia's war of aggression continue, albeit in the ever-present shadow of the Iran conflict. Ukraine has recently proved its frontline resilience once again, inflicting heavy losses on the Russians, while also commencing its Middle East mission by sending air defense specialists to the rescue. Yet Ukraine also faces pressure from many directions, from ongoing Russian war crimes to political clashes with the likes of Viktor Orbán, who keeps blocking the essential EU financial aid package for Kyiv. Joining us here today to discuss this is Iryna Krasnoshtan, Program Director at the International Center for Ukrainian Victory. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for having me.
First of all, let's take a look at the talks in Miami. Any meaningful progress there? Because naturally, the talks have been taking place in various formats throughout the last couple of weeks, but the media attention has been focused firmly on Iran during that period. So can you give us an update on what has been agreed and what is yet to be agreed in the course of these talks?
Yes, indeed. Iran has taken a lot of attention, but not only from the media, but also from the negotiators on the US side, because we understand these are the same people that are dealing also with Iran and with many other issues. So some of the meetings have been delayed on Ukrainian track, and we see that the recent meeting has been held only between the US and Ukraine. So there was no meetings in the format where Russia is present. And I think that the developments lately around the war in Iran, they have also been changing the dynamics around Ukraine. And I can say why, because basically I think that Russia once again is seeing a window of opportunity to prolong this war, because first of all, the US has kind of eased some of the sanctions on Russia, so Russia can now trade some of its oil and basically gain more resources to prolong this war. And I think that Russia is also looking at the tensions that are, taking place in the NATO alliance, in the EU, and they see that maybe the Western unity can soon collapse. So I think that unfortunately, Russia is not seeing right now the momentum for the negotiations. But
speaking of, if I may. Speaking of Western unity, what would you say about the recent reports that Russia essentially tried to pitch this sort of rather scandalous quid pro quo proposal to the US, saying we're going to withdraw our support in the area of military intelligence to Iran, but if you, the United States, stop providing intelligence data to Ukraine? Apparently, the US negotiators said, no way, we're not accepting this. Still, the very fact that Russia was trying to pitch this idea, well, it tells us something about how they perceive the negotiation process, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not surprised. And I'm sure that Russia will come up with even more ideas, because they want to actually have progress bilaterally with the US. They will be offering maybe some other deals that they can help negotiate with Iran or something else. So I'm sure there would be additional attempts on Russian side to sort of propose to the US something that would make the situation more beneficial for them. And as always, they are trying to focus only on the US. And, if Europe is not there, we see again how US has been having tensions with the European allies regarding support for Iran, for the US efforts against Iran. So I'm sure that Russia will be playing that. And we also, you have mentioned already in the introduction, but we also have now, again, the Hungary problem. We now have reports that, Russia has been also updated by the Hungarian side on all the internal matters of the EU meetings and so on. And so there are a lot of things that are making the momentum for negotiation not really very realistic. But from the latest talks in Miami, we have heard updates basically on the humanitarian track. And that's the only track that has been progressing more or less lately, because in March, in the beginning of March, we have had a release from Russian side of 500 prisoners of war and several civilians. So, I mean, there are possibilities that there would be another exchange happening. But as much as these exchanges, I mean, the release of Ukrainians is really good for Ukrainians, for families who have been waiting for 4 years, but they are not like helping us progress on a more political level, because Ukraine was for a long time indicating an interest for the meeting on the highest level, on the leaders level, but we see that Russia has never been interested in that.
So Russia keeps pushing the very same idea as it has been pushing for quite a while. It says, we want Ukrainian territory that we were not able to conquer. And Ukraine actually has been doing fairly well on the front line recently. So Russia keeps pushing for this because they can see that victory is not within their grasp. But also, there have been many other issues, control over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Do you have an impression that there could be any sort of breakthrough anytime soon? Are there any perhaps indications from foreign diplomats, from the sources that you have, that there could be some sort of movement one way or another? Because so far it has been fairly deadlocked, mostly by Russia refusing to budge on issues that they know that Ukraine and its allies will not accept.
Unfortunately, the signals that I'm getting and in the conversations that I have, you know, experts and people are more pessimistic, if I can say. So, because basically, as you've mentioned, Russian demands are still the same. They have not adapted anything, even though Ukraine has been actually had some successes on the front lines. We've been able to hold the lines more or less through the winter. We have inflicted huge losses on the Russian army. Also, I mean, we have survived the winter. And so there are a lot of elements of pressure on Ukraine that have not. I mean, again, the winter was very difficult, and again, the situation at the front line is not very good. But I'm just trying to underline that Ukraine has showed much better resilience that Russia has hoped for. So we are in a better position. And right now, also with our experience and with how other countries, even in the Middle East, are now getting interest in the technologies and the use of drones and interceptors, you know, we see that Ukraine is in a much better position, and Russia still goes back to the same demands it has put on the table in the past. So
a quick question, because we're slowly running out of time, and you've mentioned this, you know, the drone interceptors and all that. Do you find it shocking that even though the US had, you know, all the intel from the war, right, because they needed to have that in order to negotiate with Russia and so on, they seemingly overlooked the massive advantage that Ukraine has gained by developing these drones? And in the Middle East right now, this seems to have been like a massive self-own not to buy this technology earlier, and then we had like so many Patriot interceptors used to shoot down Shahed drones, which, you know, cost a fraction of what a single Patriot, is actually sold for. How could this happen, do you think? Because it seems like it should never have happened, and yet here we are. They're only now seeing what Ukraine can offer them.
Yes, well, unfortunately, I can draw here a parallel between Russia and US perception of Ukraine. I think it's how bigger powers look at the smaller powers, which they believe are smaller powers. They actually tend to undermine the abilities and capacities. So I think the US, I mean, Ukraine has been talking about drones and the new technologies and actually the technological aspect of the war for several years now, but you know, a lot of partners have not been listening to us because they believe that we are doing this because we are a poor country, we don't have very big resources and equipment as they have, and that's why, you know, we are conducting this war with these cheap technologies. And they were thinking that, oh, we are a very wealthy country, so we can have our sophisticated technologies. So they kind of overlooked that the war is changing. The technological side, it's not about, the capacities to produce the wealthy and very costly equipment.
So they underestimated Ukraine's advantage here. Unfortunately, yes, we have unfortunately run out of time. Hopefully we'll be able to continue this topic at a different opportunity. Iryna Krasnoshtan was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.